I'm Selma Bencherki. I left Youth for Tomorrow in 2016.
What is special about Youth for Tomorrow? You come back to campus. I know the place looks a little bit different.
It does.
But in your recollection of what this meant to you when you were here, what's special about Youth for Tomorrow?
Before Youth for Tomorrow was out, I was actually in 2 other group homes. And I remember in the first group home I was in, it felt like a prison. There were brick walls all the way up where you couldn't see past the campus. It felt very prison-like. And then the next group home felt like anybody could just do anything. I mean, I didn't even really feel safe there because the staff didn't feel very caring. But the one thing I will never forget about Youth for Tomorrow was truly the staff and the people that I met here, who I still keep in contact with till this day.
Who do you keep in contact with?
Miss Margot Holland. She was a staff member in Chelsea House. I think she still is.
She is.
I know she kind of switched a little bit what she does.
She's in the office now.
Miss Rachel. Rachel Catherine is her last name. She just recently got married, I think. Yes. So Miss Farah. Or Farah, she's from Jordan. Yes, so a lot of the staff members I still remember, and Miss Jones, Miss Jean Jones, I talk to her all the time.
What brought you here? Tell us your story.
Okay, so before coming to Youth for Tomorrow, as I mentioned, I actually lived in other group homes, but even before getting to those other group homes, I think a lot of it was the way that I was brought up and the life that I had at home with my family. My family brought my siblings here from Morocco, and I was born here. And my parents really wanted to keep us sheltered. So no after-school activities, no sports, no anything. I don't ever recall being able to do anything that other kids could do. Which was always a challenge in itself because I, of course, wanted to be like other kids and live a kid life. And my parents, they owned a small business and essentially made me and my sister manage their small business, which at the time I was 13 or 12 and my sister was 16. So that in itself was also a challenge. I had 2 brothers who were in and out of jail all the time and were actually later deported. So life always was chaotic. That's how I always remember my childhood. Chaos, chaos, and more chaos. And it really began to take a toll on me. And my parents really didn't understand mental health or maybe what depression looked like, especially in a child. But especially now as an adult and, you know, based off of the studies that I've done regarding psychology, I was a very depressed child. And so was my sister, actually. She attempted to commit suicide when she was around that age. So there's definitely a lot of factors around at home that just made being a kid and just being a person so hard.
You mentioned some other locations that you had been in, but what was your first reaction when you came here? What was your impressions? What were you expecting? Did you have expectations when you came here?
I didn't know what I was expecting. I think I was like, oh, another group home. And all I could remember thinking was like, I don't want to go to any group home. But everyone kept telling me, everyone who was on my my case managing team, they told me, they said, you're really going to like Youth for Tomorrow. It's not this super locked down facility. It's not some community-based group home. It is the perfect medium. And everyone really thought I would really strive here, especially because of the Girls on a Journey program, which was the program I was in when I was here. So I had some hopes and expectations that, you know what, this will be a good place for me. I'll feel like I fit in. I'll have a counselor that I feel like I fit in right with. But my first impression when I got here was I felt like the place was so bright and everything was so beautiful here. The house is everything. Everything was so beautiful and well put together. And the staff was so welcoming and kind. It definitely felt like, it gave me like a very good sense of family between the girls in the house and the staff, and, you know, even just like when we'd come over to the school, even like the people who would serve us breakfast and lunch. You know those people, you see those people every day, and it just became like normal life. I truly felt like a normal kid when I was here.
How long did it take for you to feel that way, and when did you realize, and some people have told me after they left they realized how important this was to their development. When did you realize? Could you speak on that a little bit?
Yes, of course. So when I was in the Girls on a Journey program, that was really, I really felt like this was so important for me, and I'm so glad I came here. Before I even came to any group homes, I was sexually exploited and trafficked. And in other group homes, I didn't meet other girls who experienced that. And it was really hard to speak on that in groups and things like that when no one else had a story that looked close to mine in any way. So then I just kind of sit on my hands, and I wouldn't really speak on my story very much because I didn't want to make others uncomfortable. That was always, I felt shameful because no one else around me had the same story. But I remember going to the Girls on a Journey group and hearing these other girls share stories that sounded like mine. And that for me was so like life-changing because there's other people here who are experiencing the same things, and they survived. They're here. There were some who were thriving, and there were some who weren't. But still, it was other people who could understand the trauma and the feelings that I had experienced.
Upon graduation from Youth for Tomorrow, pick up the story.
So after I left Youth for Tomorrow, oh my goodness, that feels so long ago. It really wasn't though. I do remember I remember going home. I remember Miss Margot actually on like the day before I left here, we went to go tour possible schools that I'd be going to. And I remember getting really excited and like seeing the place I grew up in Arlington, seeing like the local high school that I always knew I'd go to. And I remember also kind of feeling scared. I felt really scared. I was so used to being in kind of like a contained space, right? Like this is contained, this is safe. You go to that same school building, you know all the teachers, you see the same people. It was so safe and so contained. So I do remember clearly walking into that big giant school and being out of breath halfway through the tour because I was like, oh my goodness, this is a whole school. It's huge. And so that was one of the first things I remember that really hit me was like, oh my God, I'm going to go to real school. So that was one of the first things that I really remember when I left Youth for Tomorrow.
Wow. Well, complete your story on education and tell us what you're doing now, because I think you really have a remarkable story.
Well, thank you. So I did end up I finished high school and I graduated a year early. So I graduated in 2018 and I went to Old Dominion University where I also received the Gary Jones Scholarship. So I went to Old Dominion University and then I transferred to ECPI University and I'm majoring in criminal justice and I actually graduate in May. And now I work for DC Public Schools as a behavior and education support aide. I work in a self-contained classroom where I teach groups and I guide kids through crisis and different behavior interventions.
I would think because of your background, you have found the perfect job for you moving forward. Am I correct?
Yes.
Why?
I love working with kids. And especially in DC, the one thing I've learned about this school in particular is that it's an inner city school. And we see a lot of kids who face so many challenges at home, something I can definitely empathize with, having challenges at home. And I love when my students come to class every day and I can make them have a great day. And they get excited and they hug me and they tell me, I love you, Miss B. And those things make my day. Because that's what I always looked forward to. I looked forward to the staff here that treated me so graciously and kindly. The teachers that I knew. Miss Heflin, who I also kept, and her brother, Mr. Heflin, who both worked here in the school. And I remember those really being safe people and safe places for me.
Selma, what advice would you give to a child who might find themselves in the same position you were in? It wasn't your fault you were in that spot. It's just the way your life turned out. You've come out on the other side of that in a real positive way. I think any advice that you might pass on would be very welcome.
The number one piece of advice that I wish, well, actually people did tell me this all the time. It is not forever. I used to feel like when I was in any group home, I was going to be stuck there forever. Like there's never going to be any end in sight. But it's not forever. And you have more strength than you think you can. You can do hard things. Recovery is hard. Dealing with trauma is hard. But that feeling when you come out on the other side is indescribable. So it's not forever. Take every day for what it is. And one day you will see that those many days that felt like they were going to last forever, they don't.
How did the spiritual nature of how Youth for Tomorrow is run impact you?
So that's actually a really good question. I grew up in a Muslim household. So coming here, it's essentially Christian based, was very different. But I actually got baptized 2 years after I left here. So I definitely think it influenced me greatly. I remember talking to Pastor Jenny all the time about how I felt like I did not have acceptance from my father because I could not share his religious beliefs. And I remember him really guiding me through that. Um, and that's what always guided me. I always turned to God when I felt like I couldn't turn to anyone else. So in 2018, I was baptized.
What are some of your goals in the future? What would you like to accomplish?
Well, next year I'll be a teacher, which I'm super excited about. I recently was offered for next school year to be the fourth grade reading and writing teacher, so I'm super excited. And further down the line, this is actually a bigger dream of mine, but I would like to open my own treatment or group home center for girls who have been sexually trafficked and exploited.